Last Allied landing, France, 1945. In the spring of 1945, as Europe's war reached a pivotal moment, Allied forces readied for a decisive offensive against Nazi Germany. This narrative explores the final, significant Allied landing in France and its implications for the continent's future. The context of war. By early 1945, the Allies had liberated much of France, but the battle was not over. The German military, though increasingly weakened, was still a formidable adversary, determined to defend its territory and retain power. The context of war during the final, Allied landing in France, known as Operation Dragoon, occurred in August 1944. This operation aimed to secure the southern coast and aid in the liberation of France from Nazi control, while the Normandy landings on D-Day, June 6, 1944, targeted the north. Dragoon was designed to draw German forces away and bolster Allied efforts. Timing was crucial, as Allied troops had established a presence in northern France but encountered fierce resistance. Operation Dragoon involved over 300 ships and thousands of soldiers, landing near Saint-Tropez, featuring coordinated air and naval strikes intended to diminish German defenses. Planning Operation Dragoon, the final Allied landing in France, required significant coordination and strategic insight. Launched in early 1944, the operation aimed to secure a foothold in southern France, while supporting ongoing efforts in the north. Key figures, including General Eisenhower and General de Gaulle, worked together to define goals and logistics, selecting optimal landing sites along the Mediterranean coast. The operation involved over 300 ships and thousands of troops, necessitating thorough intelligence on German defenses. Successful communication and precise timing were essential, as the mission aimed to distract German forces and sustain the Allied push to liberate France from Nazi rule. The troops mobilize. The phrase, troops mobilize, during the last Allied landing in France, refers to the extensive preparation and deployment of military forces for Operation Dragoon in August 1944. This operation aimed to establish a strong presence on the southern coast of France, complementing the earlier Normandy landings. Mobilization involved the assembly of thousands of soldiers from various Allied nations, including the United States, Britain, and Free French forces. Troops underwent rigorous training and were organized into units ready for amphibious assault. Coordination was key, as logistics needed to account for transport by over 300 ships and necessary supplies for sustained operations. The successful mobilization of troops allowed for a well-executed landing near Saint-Tropez, where coordinated air and naval support weakened German defenses. This operation not only facilitated the liberation of southern France but also significantly contributed to the overall Allied strategy to defeat Nazi Germany, showcasing the importance of mobilization in wartime success. The landing day. On April 21, 1945, landing day for Operation Dragoon, the final Allied landing in France, took place on August 15, 1944. This event was crucial for the liberation of Europe, as Allied forces aimed to secure a foothold on the southern coast. In the early hour, the battle for control. The battle raged fiercely. Allies engaged in combat, employing tactics honed from earlier encounters. Every inch gained came at a heavy cost, with significant losses on both sides. Securing the beaches. After hours of brutal fighting, the Allies secured the beachhead. Medical units swiftly assisted the injured, while supply lines began to take shape. This victory was vital for further liberating France. The aftermath. The cost of victory was substantial. As the dust settled, the grim realities of war became apparent. Yet, the successful landing sparked hope among the French, marking a turning point against Nazi oppression. Looking forward. In the days that followed, the Allies pushed deeper into German-occupied territory. The momentum from the landing would lead to further offensives, bringing them closer to the heart of enemy territory. Challenges. Ahead. However, challenges loomed. As they advanced, Allied forces faced fortified German positions, slowing their progress and testing their resolve and strategies. Coordinating with local resistance. Understanding the importance of local support, Allied commanders reached out to French resistance groups. These courageous fighters had bravely resisted Nazi occupation, offering crucial intelligence on enemy movements. The human cost. The human toll of the campaign weighed heavily on the soldiers. Each casualty reminded them of the stakes involved. Medics worked tirelessly to save lives, demonstrating the commitment to their cause. Strategic importance of the operation. The strategic significance of Operation Varsity extended beyond the battlefield. Securing these positions was essential for liberating France and the broader Allied strategy in Europe. Moments of comradeship. In chaos, moments of camaraderie emerged. Soldiers shared laughter and stories, bonding over their experiences, providing vital emotional support during challenging times, adapting tactics. As the situation evolved, Allied commanders adjusted their tactics based on enemy actions. Flexibility became crucial as they learned from each encounter and adapted their plans. The role of air support. Air support was vital for the operation. Allied aircraft conducted reconnaissance and targeted enemy positions, weakening defenses and supporting ground troops. Engaging with civilians. Allied soldiers engaged with local civilians, offering assistance and collecting vital information. These interactions fostered goodwill and trust between the occupiers and those they liberated. The drive toward liberation. The push for liberation continued with fervor. Each day brought new challenges, yet the Allies remained focused on their ultimate goal: freedom for the French people. Moments of reflection. In the chaos, soldiers found moments of contemplation. They considered the gravity of their mission, the sacrifices made, and the future they were fighting for. A future free from tyranny. As tensions escalated, skirmishes with German forces intensified. The urgency of their mission weighed heavily, reminding soldiers that every moment counted in the fight for freedom. The unseen enemy. The enemy often lurked unseen, necessitating vigilance. The threat of ambushes kept Allied troops alert, knowing danger could strike unexpectedly. The burden of leadership. Leadership during critical operations was filled with pressure. Officers had to make quick, often difficult choices that could affect their men's lives and the mission's outcome. The role of supply lines. Robust supply lines were crucial for the operation's success. Logistics teams worked diligently to ensure troops had the necessary resources to sustain their advance. The civilian perspective. For many civilians, the arrival of Allied troops evoked mixed emotions. Relief and joy intertwined with anxiety. They had suffered under Nazi rule, and the transition to freedom was filled with uncertainty. Communication and coordination. Effective communication was vital for the success of the operation, relying on advanced technology and intelligence sharing to coordinate attacks, supply routes, and troop deployments. The influence of propaganda. Throughout history, propaganda has played a critical role in shaping public perception during conflicts. Its purpose is to influence opinions and promote specific ideologies through various mediums, appealing to emotions and simplifying complex issues. The role of women. In August 1944, Allied forces executed Operation Dragoon, the last major amphibious assault in France during World War II. While military operations are often viewed as male-dominated, women were essential to the success of this mission and the overall war effort. The role of women. In August 1944, Allied forces executed Operation Dragoon, the last major amphibious assault in France during World War II. While military operations are often viewed as male-dominated, women were essential to the success of this mission and the overall war effort. Women in the armed forces. During World War II, women filled various roles in the military. In the U.S., organizations like the Women's Army Corps, WAC, and the Navy Women's Reserve, WAVES, allowed women to take on positions that freed men for combat. They operated communications, provided medical support, and managed logistics, playing vital roles in preparing for Operation Dragoon. After the final Allied landing in France, forces quickly moved forward, freeing towns and cities from German occupation. Through coordinated attacks and effective air support, they advanced on critical objectives. By late 1944, the Allies had breached German lines, resulting in the liberation of Paris. This success continued, ultimately leading to the fall of Nazi Germany in May 1945. The victory not only brought peace to Europe but also helped establish lasting alliances, and the United Nations aimed at preventing future wars and fostering global cooperation.